Hello, Tungsten Miner here. I am now standing outside of one of my mines, and this is a copper mine in particular. And because of the way that ore generation works in this mod pack, I'm doing things a little differently than normal. So here I've got basically a straight corridor that goes for actually a couple of 100 meters off in this direction, cutting straight through a big chunk of the hillside. And then I've got another corridor which does basically the same thing 10 meters off to that side, and another one that does the same thing 10 meters off to that side. So more or less every 10 meters I cut a swath through the hillside. Because the deposits are so large for copper and what I'm looking for, that I don't need to have a lot of fine resolution on my slices through as I'm looking for things. I can just take a pretty big chunk and have a pretty good chance of actually running across the deposit. And I've actually already found, I think, two in this mine in particular, and I'll just kind of keep doing the same thing to find more deposits as I need them. But I thought I'd point out how the different ore generation makes a big difference in your mining strategy. Yeah, so I here have my horse, and let's go take a trip with the horse here. And I'll show off one of the things that I've been working on besides the mine. So just a second. So here I am standing at the end of a road I've been working on. This one is actually stretching out from my house, which is approximately over there on the other side of the hill, and is coming over to this side, one to reach the copper mine down in that direction that I just came from, and the village that's right next to it, just about over there. But also, one of my friends has set up a house down that way, and I want to extend the road down in that direction. So, the way I've been doing this, I figured I could show a little bit of how that works, is I generally start with my stone excavator, dig up whatever chunks I need, and I always try to dig one layer deeper than the surrounding area on both sides. So this is one layer deeper than the surrounding area on that side, but not on this side. So I'm going to dig this one layer deeper still, and my horse is going to walk straight in the way. And I'm going to dig this one down, dig that one out, pick up the extra dirt. Now I'm going to take my chisel and choose a different pattern. One, so that it doesn't convert back into regular grass and waste all this effort, but also that I kind of like this pattern a bit better. It looks a little more noticeable, a little bit more road-like, and I'm going to fill that back in. So now the last step is to make it so that there's 1 meter of just plain grass on either side of this road. So I'm going to just carve back the terrain just a touch. Obviously I hadn't done this for this little other segment, but you can see clearly I have done for the rest of it up there. So now I've extended this road, another couple of meters down, and eventually what I'm going to do is I'll reach another junction over here, and I'll have one side go off that way and one side go off that way. Let's go take a look, though, at where this road leads to, and we can get a sense of how I handle those junctions. So in this case, it's going to go up and over the hill here, and way off in the distance, eventually, maybe, we'll be able to see my house. Probably outside of my range just a bit now. One of the things that Minecraft added, I think in 1.9, was this ability to right-click with a shovel and make a dirt pathway. Now, that's really nice, and it makes for a nice little roadway there, and would certainly be less work than what I'm doing now. But I decided to go this way for two reasons. One, this pattern is a lot more definite than that one is. You can see it more clearly. And two, I can import this stuff and lay it down in places where there isn't naturally grass, and make my roadway kind of smooth and clear in that case. I'm going to have to remember that horse wandered over the hill there and go fetch him again later. But for cases where it's not like a main destination, this is my iron mine down there, I decided I'm going to use these little pathways for things that you'd think of as being like foot trails or minor pathways going off to the side there. So just a second, go fetch that darn horse. Okay, I've got that horse back again. So as we continue down this road, we eventually get in range of being able to see, almost, see my house off in the distance there. And this road is just 3 meters wide. I try to follow the terrain as carefully as possible. Yeah, there we go. So that the road feels natural and kind of blends in. Wherever I go through some place that has a lot of trees like this, I'll clear any trees that are blocking the road and then replant the saplings along the sides so that I still have the same general density of forest, just not directly in the way of the road. Any place where I run into a lake, which I haven't got an example of. Oh yeah, here it is. I'll fill in the 1 meter bounds and fill in the water of the lake and then leave the rest of it alone. So trying to have as little impact as I can on the terrain to either side. Here's an example of a T-junction that goes back up to the house. The stairway is 4 meters wide, so I made the road likewise 4 meters wide all the way down to this T-junction and decided to make the T-junction sooner rather than later so I didn't have to make the extra wide road. This then continues off in this direction towards a couple of different villages and actually back towards the spawn point for this world. So going on ahead, you can see one of the villages and now the second village. And example of where I had to kind of carve off a little bit of a lake. And as I go up to one of these villages, I'm going to go over here. Now I try to make the roads have a little bit of a curve at the end here. Not a lot, but enough that it doesn't feel completely crazy. I also try to smooth out the roads of the villages. So a lot of times villages will have steps in them that don't break off cleanly, or they'll have weird kind of lumps, or they'll have stuff like this one does where it's a lot of crazy uneven terrain. So just trying to smooth things out, make it feel a little bit more natural. And then my road picks up here on the far side of the village, going back to the spawn point all the way back over here. And again, did much of the same thing to kind of smooth the terrain just immediately around the road, but leave it in place as much as possible. And so here we are back at spawn point, the turf hut and the little lava lake and our little bit of farm over there. So I'm going to zoom on ahead and get back to the house because the road is pretty much the same all the way through the system. But the main benefit of it, I find, is one, having cleared the trees out of the way makes it easier to just sit back on your horse and kind of cruise over the terrain at high speed. And two, that evening out the climbing up and down makes it so that wherever you've got to go up and down someplace relatively steep, kind of like this right here, you've got it set up so that it's a point where the horse can just automatically walk from one step to the next step, and you don't have to do any jumping, which on a horse is even more tedious than trying to do it in person. And yeah, the road makes it so convenient that I'm actually almost back again, so maybe I won't zoom ahead. But I will talk a bit about what I've been doing with the house. So one of the things I decided to do was explore the Minecraft Comes Alive mod, which replaces all of your villagers with much more interesting and robust NPCs, non-player characters. So instead of just your grunting sort of villagers, you can actually interact with these folks. And when I say interact, you can like really interact. And we'll talk about exactly what that means in a second. So here's one of my friends here who's living with us. This is Trisha the leather worker. So when I right click on Trisha, I can see her current mood is passive, so kind of neutral. Her personality, and this is a permanent trait, is flirty, so kind of gives you a sense of how you'd best interact with this person. The 2 rings indicates that she's married to Ralph, who's one of the security guards here. And the yellow hearts indicate that she's very friendly with me. So you initially have no hearts at all. When you first start interacting with them, you get some red hearts and then ultimately yellow hearts. Once you've stacked up 5 red hearts, you start getting yellow ones. I don't know where this person came from. I didn't catch them or have them come over here on their own, but here she is. Passive, personality confident, not married. I really have no idea where she came from at all. Let me put my horse away and we can talk to some of these other villagers here. Here's a short villager who's actually my daughter. So horses. let me talk a little bit about this area. So this used to be the place where I kept a lot of my chests and things while I was doing my building. And in the end, I decided what I really wanted was a stable that was kind of in the house area so that I could just ride my horse right up into the courtyard, right up into the house, and then put him away someplace convenient that would be easy to get to. I also started thinking about which spaces are indoors versus outdoors. Eventually, I'll want to set up some of the tough as nails kind of AC HVAC units so that I can keep areas indoors at a reasonable temperature year round and not have to worry about the weather. But that requires me to define some indoor areas that I want to keep track of, or at least I don't know if it's required necessarily by the mod, but I want to think about it that way because that's the kind of thing I like to do. So I defined this as one of my outdoor areas and kept this nice open archway. You might remember this used to have an archway that led directly to a stair, which I've taken out. And I've also removed the archway so that I can make that another indoor area. I've taken the lanterns that I showed when I originally did this courtyard, and I've started copying them around to various places in the house. I don't remember if I talked about these doorways. Last time, I think I didn't have these doorways. What I did have, though, was the carriage doors from Malace's doors, and eventually my fellow server folks and I decided that the bugginess we were seeing in Malace's doors for this particular version of Minecraft 1.10.2 was just too much. And so we took that mod out completely, which of course meant I had a big gaping hole in the side of the wall here. And so I used chisels and bits to make a fairly nice, I think, door frame, kind of following some of the conventions you see in some, grander real-life buildings, where they try to make the feeling of the door be bigger by adding a bit more wood around the outside that isn't actually part of the door. So in here then, I decided I wanted to move the stairwells into this room. And so using the same black granite to simulate wrought iron, I expanded the spiral staircase design that I started with before by making it actually 4 meters wide instead of 3 meters wide. And that kind of makes a lot of difference. They're just so much easier to walk up now, and I don't really need the railing on the side anymore. And then I just added a simple railing around the outside edge here. And I made it so that the pole goes all the way up to the ceiling, which is getting a little hard to see. Let's take a nap here. And then has just the tiniest bit of a mounting point on the ceiling there. These doors were not Malace's doors in the first place. These are DecoCraft doors, so they weren't affected. And I haven't done much else up here. So heading back downstairs, I shouldn't have slept because I wanted to talk about these lights. I took the same light lamp design and then copied it just a bit different to hang from the ceiling up here, and then hung those across the whole middle area of this room, and then took the same lamp design and actually recessed it. So you can see how this is half of the lamp and that's the other half of the lamp. It crosses the 1 meter boundary because here we are on the floor on both sides. And since this wall doesn't reach the edge of 1 meter, and we can see that here, right? It's going right down the center of that 1 meter block. It actually needed to get shifted back a bit. And I did that with a positive chisel design, and holding down the shift key allows you to move any given pattern you're placing down, even across boundaries of the 1 meter boundaries. So you can do something like this by just kind of sliding it back. Of course, now if I want to duplicate it, I need 2 positive chisel design patterns, one for the wall part of it and one for the kind of sticking out part of it. But that's fine. It works great. And I, obviously was able to copy a bunch of these all over the place. I've moved some things around. My furnaces are now over here. Smeltery is still over here. I made myself a portable tank from Thermal Expansion to go grab a bunch of lava. And I moved all of my Tinker's Construct benches and things over here. Same lanterns over here, same staircase over here, same doorway. I just kind of cloned everything over. This person over here is my wife. So she was a villager, one of the nearby villagers, and I went and started courting her, and then eventually gifted her a golden ring. So let's take a look at that. So the way you make one of these things is, well, okay, you can use regular gold or this rose gold, which is one of the special items that the mod adds. But a bunch of ingots in a circle gets you a wedding ring. And then when you talk to the person, you can interact with them in all of these different ways. Now, not all of these are available for all villagers. In fact, most of them aren't, depending upon who the villager is exactly. But I can interact with pretty much any villager, and these are all the things you can do. Now, depending upon the personality of the individual, certain ones of these activities may be successful or unsuccessful. So if I, say, tell her a story, that green plus indicates that she liked that. Now, it may be if I try telling her a story again, well, she liked that one too. She is my wife after all. But eventually I may do something that she doesn't like. Yeah. If a person likes you already, they're predisposed to enjoy your interactions more. And so it's probably, yeah, there you go. For whatever reason, didn't like me flirting with her. However, since we have a long-standing relationship, the number of kind of liking points I have is way off of this scale. So I can have a few negative interactions from time to time, and it doesn't affect this. But if this were a person I hadn't interacted with at all, you could definitely see the hearts going up and down depending upon what works. So paying attention to the personality allows you to make a pretty savvy guess about what kind of interactions are going to work. And this tells me that she's predisposed to be in a good mood. So that means it's more likely my interactions are going to be successful. Married to me, and this person actually was a child of two other villagers. I happened not to know that when I first encountered them, but sure enough, it must have been two villagers in that village, obviously procreated, and she was running about and came to adulthood before I spent much time in that village. Obviously, one of the other players on the server must have spent enough time there for her to grow up before I encountered her. Let's see what else. You can ask a villager to follow you. So if she's going to follow me, I'm just going to wander around and she'll just kind of keep after me. And that's how I got her to come up to my house. I went down to the village, I asked her to follow me, and then walked around. It was quite a distance away normally. But this makes it a whole lot easier to get villagers to come with you to your house. Eventually then, I walked over here, which is my bedroom, and I said, okay, you're going to set your home to right here. And what happens is any villager who's got a home set will automatically teleport instantaneously to their sleeping location when it gets to be nighttime, so that you can just decide where they're going to be. And villagers in an actual village will kind of have these randomly assigned when the villager is created. And so if you hang around a village as it's just coming to be nighttime, you'll actually see this happen on your own. Let's see, you can still trade, doing all the usual trades a person of that profession can do. I forget what Katya's profession was. It goes away. You can't see it anymore once they've gotten to be related to you. Procreate will create a baby item, and then you can hang that, hold on to that in your inventory until the baby grows up to be a child, and then right-click on the ground, and the child will start, running off, and you can interact with them like a regular villager. I'm going to say move freely so she can run around, do whatever she wants. If there's a horse nearby, you can obviously have them ride a horse. You can ask them to do work. This particular person only knows cooking, but these are all the other professions that the villagers might happen to know. Let's see, what else? Villagers have their own inventory. You can give them armor. So especially if you have guards, like there's one of my guards over here. Hello, Stuart. I can say, you have to be related to the person, so the wife or child. So I'm not related to Stuart, we're just friends. His wife is Georgiana. Here's my daughter, age 10, so she's still growing up, but I can see her inventory and I can, come on back here, ask her to do work. Obviously, she hasn't picked a profession yet, and so kind of paradoxically, all of these things are available except cooking, which is a little strange. You can pick up your child, at least until a certain age, and give them a piggyback ride. And then when you right-click on the ground, they jump off. Let's see, anything different? No, I think that's about it. I set her home to be in the same room so that, my whole family kind of goes into that room when it's nighttime. Let's see, so we've talked about people, we've talked about the horse, we've talked about the road, we've talked about the lamps, the doors, the new stairs. One other thing about stairs. I moved this one over here because I kind of wanted there to be 3 staircases at more or less equidistant points around the circle. They're not exactly equidistant, so one staircase is right here, another one's right here, so 90 degrees apart, and then all the way around here, so more than 90 degrees, 135 degrees apart from those two is this last staircase. But it was better than nothing, and I didn't want a staircase in the middle of those big walkways that take you out of the house. So I planted this one over here and followed the same kind of smaller design that I used elsewhere. Let's see. I've decided to make this end of the house kind of my crafting side of the house. So I've moved all the storage I have so far, just normal chests. And I've started getting myself a little bit of power. What I think ultimately I want to do is go for nuclear power using extreme reactors. But for the time being, I'm just using a plain old steam dynamo from thermal expansion. So you put some water in here, you put some burnable stuff in here, coal, charcoal, whatever, and slowly things will heat up. It'll produce steam over here, and then power in here. The power then goes into this basic energy cell, which can store up to 2 million RF, and it's halfway full-ish. And then I've got some leadstone flux duct, which is the lowest level of conduit to move power to the various machines that ultimately I will make, because you need to make a bunch of machines in order to make the reactor. So I've got a redstone furnace, and oh, that's interesting. It says redstone furnace, but it is not. Interesting. Well, this is a pulverizer. I need to make myself a redstone furnace and a couple of other machines, and then I'll be in business. Oh, I don't think I talked about these little doors. Maybe I did. But basically just dark oak around the edge here. Decided to make a little panel above the doorway to give it a little more kind of definition and body. And then just the door itself is a plain old dark oak Minecraft door. Hello. This fence also chisels in bits, just kind of following a wood slat pattern. I wanted it to be something that the horse couldn't walk over, but it could easily jump over, so that I don't have to fuss too much about gates and things. Oh, yeah, the sun's going down. You can see he just warped back into place. And there's my family warped back into place. The reason I got some guards, actually, is there are some caves around here someplace I haven't blocked up yet. And so occasionally I'll have mobs that come wandering in. And I actually had one of my friends here almost get killed. So I decided to entice some guards to come along and just stationed them at the entranceways here, just in case. And that's worked out really, really well so far. Anyway, yeah, let's take a look at what this looks like in the dark. So you can see it works actually quite well. Even in nighttime, this room is very nicely illuminated. So I think that's about it. Pretty well caught up, I think, on what's going on in the server here. If you like this video, go ahead and hit like. If you want to know when the next update is available, hit subscribe, and I will talk to you later.